Is climate mayhem? I'm glad you asked. One day, Ty Wolf Jones and I were talking about some of the biggest, hairiest problems on Earth and came up with a hypothesis we wanted to test. If you believe in climate change, the only way we'll get past these massive environmental problems is if for-profit companies get involved.
In other words, we've spent hundreds of years getting into this mess. We'll need to spend billions, maybe trillions getting out of it. Therefore, companies need to make money in order for someone to spend it.
Then we asked, can we speak with a dozen or so companies in different verticals of climate tech who are making it part of their mission to be climate conscious and making big bucks while doing it? Well, we did just that.
Thus, Climate Mayhem was born. So follow Jacob Kubica and I along as we listen to some incredible stories to test this hypothesis. Oh, and are you an entrepreneur about to get into this space? You will definitely learn something from these extremely impressive founders and operators of just how possible it is to take on a seemingly impossible task. Mayhem on, Jacob.
Mayhem on, Ty. Michael Goulden is the co-founder of Kerbo Charge, a UK startup providing EV charging for people with no off-street parking. Their secret sauce lies in a patented high-strength polycarbonate duct that they've cut through a small channel in a sidewalk to give easy access to charge up your whip. Now, Kerbo Charge was founded in 2021 by 3 people who had a shared frustration of how freaking hard it was to charge your car in a dense city like London or New York City.
And Michael is just a blast to talk to. Not only is he passionate about this space and solving this problem, but he's a veteran startup founder. So we dig into a bit about what it is to build a company and do it again, and things around that nature. But then, of course, we do some of the hard-hitting questions like what else is really needed to make electric vehicles more accessible? What is Kerbo Charge having to deal with regulation-wise in their city? And of course, what's the benefit of putting grooves in your sidewalks? So join us. I think you're going to learn a ton and have a lot of fun and enjoy. Mayhem on.
Michael, thanks for coming on Climate Mayhem.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
It's really nice to have you back. I thought we'd start off with a question of who is this person? Michael, who's William Morrison?
There's a William Morris, but who I definitely know who that is. I believe William Morrison, though, is he the founder of the UK supermarket chain Morrison's?
No, he's not.
But he's an excellent man to know.
You get another one. You get another guess.
I might have to plead the fifth, as you would say over there.
So William Morrison was the first creator of the first electric car. It was developed in 1890, 1891.
I should know that.
I pulled it from the Kerbo Charge Twitter, so I didn't mean to stump you. But I guess to tell a little more about this car he made, it was the 6-passenger wagon capable of reaching 23 kilometers per hour, so modest speed, only 14 miles per hour. You know what's funny though is that I was looking up for these. We're gonna do some climate mayhem questions later. I was finding that there was someone else that was claimed as the creator of the first electric car, and he was British. But here it goes. First ever electric car was built in, it said 20 years before, in 1884 in the UK by someone by the name of Thomas Parker. So I don't know. Jury's out, right?
Yeah,
a lot of people claiming that crown.
I'm going to back the British guy.
Nice, of course.
Okay, good. I'll back him too. Well, Michael, last time we had you on the show, we were talking about Pinga, and it was at the end of the journey there. Where did that end, by the way? I think you had mentioned that Pinga got acquired. Is that right?
Yeah, we got acquired by a company called B Livery, which is a national competitor in the UK, and that happened in January this year. So it was just an amazing feeling to but it's real mixed feelings. Like we wanted the acquisition to happen, and that took a long time. But on the other hand, when the very final pinger delivery happened, which was for a packet of cigarettes.
Wow.
We watched that go through before it went over to the new company. That was
Bittersweet.
quite a sad feeling. And actually, that customer called us because she wanted to change it. Yeah, just completely coincidentally because she wanted to change her order. So I got to speak to the last pinger customer, which was was a nice feeling.
That was a journey.
The new company the big delivery that took it over. We stayed in touch with them, and they're doing well. And onwards and upwards.
That's right. So you're moving into new space. This is sustainable energy transportation. What got you interested in sustainability, space, climate?
Well, for my 8th birthday, I asked for a can crusher for my birthday, which is relatively unusual because I have been concerned about climate change and environmental impact from quite an early age.
Wow.
And yeah, I just remember learning about it even then, and speaking to my parents about it. My dad definitely dismissed it as not something to worry about. So it has been front of mind for a while. And with Pinger, we wanted to move to, and we did move to zero emission delivery. So it was an important part of that startup. But with this business, this particular idea came from us picking up an electric car last year and some of the problems we had with that.
Which I gotta ask, how many cans were you crushing?
Quite a few. There was was
it like a mountable one that went up on the wall? Were you able to mount it?
Yeah, it's an exterior one.
Nice.
And it's a very efficient machine. I mean, it was an excellent machine. Yeah.
They're so simple and they're powerful. We have one, and I have 2 boys. But then all of a sudden, people stopped kind of doing the whole crush. They're doing like these half crushes, these fast crushes. Like, come on, guys.
No, it's very satisfying. Extremely satisfying.
I agree.
And people who are can crushers, they're pretty passionate can crushers.
Yeah, exactly.
They're into it. They're into teaching other people how to do it, and that they should.
It's a very physical activity, so you got to put a lot of energy into it.
Yeah.
And so at 8, though, you were thinking about the environment, and you were thinking crushing cans is going to be a way to help it. How is that connection made?
It wasn't a direct contributor to well, actually I think that's harsh actually, because otherwise recycling was still a relatively new thing.
Sure.
And so those cans would have gone to landfill otherwise, so there was a little bit of CO2 reduction right there by recycling instead of manufacture.
So first introduction was recycling. If I recycle this, then I'm helping. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned you got an EV. Which EV do you have?
We had an old banger. We had a 20-year-old Golf, and they changed. They introduced a new. Yeah, it was pride and joy. It
VW
had a lot of stories to tell. Yeah, but the mayor of London introduced a low emission zone, which made the car illegal. So I actually speaking of crushing, I took it to be crushed. I thought I could have sold it for a few £100s, but I thought the right thing to do was get it off the road. So take it down to the local scrapper's yard, which was quite sad to see it get towed away. And then we got a VW ID4.
Oh, those are so cool.
Yeah.
They look like the future.
To hear about those in the state. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's a great car, and because of the diesel gate scandal in the US, there's a deal so that if you buy one of those, you get unlimited free charging for 3 years or something. So, and in the US, you get the seat massager, which we don't get in the UK. So quite jealous of that.
Wow.
It doesn't come with a can crusher.
No can crusher.
It doesn't have a can crusher, I'm afraid. No, that's an extra. That's an optional extra.
Yeah. Maybe that could be on the side of the Kerbo Charge. Little
Right next to it. I
right
like it.
next to it. Very cool. And so we're toying with this question. Has climate change affected your life so far at all, if at all, and how so?
So physically, on a day-to-day basis, I'd be lying if I said it had that much. I live in England. We're not, although temperatures are going up. Although we had, as you may have seen, we had a big heat wave this year. Temperature got over 40 degrees for the first time, which was pretty uncomfortable because no one here has aircon. But I think the true impact is just is anxiety, and the feeling of this thing being out of control. And I've got 2 young children, and what's the impact on them? And the sort of, what's the impact going to be of people that do live in really hot places near the equator, and the concern about the need for mass migration. So and food security. So yeah, that's it. It's a mental impact rather than a physical one.
Yeah, I think that's common, right? The people that care, it's this, being able to think down the road a bit and start to think and worry, at the end of the day when start to worry. So you get to this electric vehicle, you're parking it, I'm assuming at your place, and what happens then? Is this where the idea starts to pop up? What is the Kerbo Charge or origin story at this point?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we get delivery. We live on a terraced street, with no off-street parking, and that for about 40% of the UK are in that position. And we start looking at how to charge. So we've got 2 options: one, trailer cable over the pavement, and risk a personal injury claim.
Does that happen?
It hasn't happened yet, but I think it's only a matter of time before there'll be quite a high-profile case in the UK. Or 2, use a public charge point. And that there's one just around the corner. So we started using that. And the big issue is, well, it's inconvenient because you've got to drive to it, walk back, get the car, and then drive back again. And it might not be available. But the big issue is cost. And the cheapest public charge points here in London are 38p per kilowatt hour. At home,
that's 38 pounds.
About 8p.
Wow.
So the difference is around about £23 per charge, or over 1,000 a year. So that's quite a difference in price. And it's every time you use one of those public charge points, it's annoying because you just know you're paying more than you need to. And that's where you see, as you walk around town, and you check out our Instagram, you can see some amusing pictures of innovative charging. People putting charging cables down drain pipes, over trees, any way they can to try and charge at home. So that's the problem that we're trying to solve.
How did you figure out, you started to do this pricing analysis, right? I mean, were you just did you know what the special charges were you needed and how much it might take, and you just did the math? Is it simple, that's simple? Or are you guys, is there some other thoughts of the technology?
It's pretty, I'm quite a frugal person.
Nice.
And so I just like to I do watch what I'm spending money on, and yeah, it's quite easy. It's really straightforward to work out. But when you charge publicly, you get your bill at the end. You'll see what it is, and you can see what it is at home. So yeah, it's not tricky. Basically, you just multiply. The simple way is just multiply the capacity of the battery by the cost per kilowatt hour, and
got it.
You're good to go.
You're able to figure that. But it's not just the charger. You guys aren't just creating a charger here. What else is part of this product? You mentioned laying a cable across the sidewalk there.
Right. So the problem to solve is how to charge your car if you don't have off-street parking. And then the product we're working on is a system. It's a 3-part system. So it's a wall-mounted charger that goes on the front of your house. And then we've been working on a polymer channel with a self-closing lid that goes into the pavement outside your house. So you cut a shallow channel. This polymer channel goes in, and when you want to charge, you lift the lid of your channel, drop your cable in, and then connect it to your car. It sounds simple, But the design requirement is that it needs to withstand the pressure of a 100 kilogram person wearing a high heel. And
Right.
100
which
kilograms.
is just a lot. It's a lot more than a vehicle driving over it in terms of pressure.
Yeah.
And must have a reliable self-closing lid without any springs or magnets. So we developed this living hinge concept, and so that goes in, and you've got to have the council, the local authority on board to put it in. And then the last part is the Kerbo Charge app that lets you charge off peak, but lets you share your supply with neighbors when you're not using the product. And so the idea is that you have 3 or 4 of these installed on a terrace street. You've got a hyperlocal sharing product. It might bring some memories back of Pinger. For everybody in that street to be able to charge easily, because when you charge, you want to charge on your own road. You don't want your car too far away. And so the big picture is creating a national charging infrastructure from domestic supplies. That's the picture of where we're trying to get to.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, so here locally in the Pacific Northwest, there's a startup blog called GeekWire, and they just recently, you're making me think of the story that they just wrote about a gentleman and his son driving from LA to Seattle for a baseball game. He decided to do it on his electric vehicle and just do the whole experience, right? And of course, I mean, that's about, 1,100, 1,200 miles. Usually you'll do it in a day and a half. You can power through, but not with your kid, right? So it's a day and a half trip. Ended up taking him 3 days because it was not a Tesla, it was a Mustang. And he ended up having Mach-E, exactly. And so Universal's charger, right, goes in and stops at whatever he can find on his road. I mean, he mapped it out and knew kind of where they were, but every single one had a different app. Many of them weren't working. And so he had to ping customer service. I want to say of the 8, several times that he charged, 6 or 7 times that he charged, 4 of them, he had to sit online with customer service for, minutes to hours. And so it took him 3 days, it took double the amount of time to get, the same thing, but he wanted to do it. And he documented the whole thing online. And it's an interesting what you just said, because one of the things that I'm thinking about that you guys are solving is obviously the pricing. You talked about that. You talked about this unique problem somewhat to London or high density neighborhoods that need this channel and this 3-part system. But this interesting idea of access, of like this national thing, like talk a little bit more about that and how you see that being used by private power suppliers.
Yeah, no, sure. So I mean, first of all, I think the future of EVs is going to be very focused on home charging, because as battery capacity grows, then once you get up to a range of 500, 600, 700 miles, then how often do you need to drive more than that in one day? I mean, I appreciate in the US you're driving bigger distances, but even then, unless you're going, it's presumably relatively rare to be driving. Need to do more than that in a day, unless you're going on a lot of business trips or holidays. And so I see the need to charge when you're out and about, reducing, but you do need them. So for when you do have to do those long distance journeys. Now, for that case study, it's really interesting. I mean, I'm not close enough to what the infrastructure is like in the US, but I just completed a family trip from Spain back to the UK. So it was about, we did about 1,000 kilometers or so. And in France, it was really good. So it's all about the speed of the charger and the availability, obviously. And if you're using the 350 kilowatt chargers, if your car is fast enough, if you have one of the newer Teslas, then you can charge in 9-10 minutes. That's the level 3 chargers, right? Yeah, and most are level 2. They can take that level of voltage. Yeah. Now, most cars like the Mach-E that you just described will be more around the 120, 130 mark. So to fully charge, you're looking at 45, 50 minutes. But if those charges are there, then that journey that you just described shouldn't have taken much longer.
Right.
You might be adding on a few hours rather than, and then you're still going to need to stop anyway at some point for lunch. So if you manage to time it, it's fine. I mean, my reflection on driving through France was that the charges were there; they were expensive.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
at that level of speed, at that power, they don't work out much cheaper than petrol. But you don't need to use them that often. But it was taking. Yeah, when we're in a rush, it is the technology still is immature for sure, because if you really need to fill quickly, as it were, and it's going to take 50 minutes, that is going to cause you some issues. So there's definitely a way to go for sure.
Well, and he seemed to have access to the chargers themselves. A lot of them weren't working. Like literally, you go in, plug in. He would have to go to the one next to it. Then he would have to hit up customer service. I mean, I think your comment about home charging solves a lot of problems, because you're not dealing necessarily with someone else's service, someone else's reliability or lack thereof.
Yeah.
But the other interesting thing that you talked about was battery size. So, I mean, talk about what what is Kerbo thinking about battery size and having home charge be the central.
Yeah, and I will just say on that point about reliability, it's completely right. It can be incredibly annoying, and although the app will tell you before you get there whether it's usually will tell you whether it's out of service. But still, you might not check that, and you can really get stuck. So that there needs to be. I guess it's pioneering technology and new technologies
and service, right? Like you got to have your equipment working. You got to have the support there when someone pings you. It's an interesting problem that at least in the U.S. seems to be pretty nascent, like you said. And if we were all charging from home, if we could charge from home and that was 90% of the charge, okay, there you go, right? Like you solve a huge part of that.
No, for sure. So batteries interesting. So we've got a problem with batteries at the moment, which is that the technology is lithium ion. It's been around for a long time. It's not great technology, but it's still really the best we've got for commercial use. The battery capacity decays fairly quickly. It's really expensive to make. It uses a lot of energy and it uses a lot of rare earth metals that are hard to get hold of. And then the capacity itself isn't brilliant. So our car, which is a new one, will do realistic normal driving, will do 250 miles. So that we're all waiting for this jump in technology, battery technology. Fluoride iron is probably it has got great potential because it's has a much higher density than lithium ion, but it's at the moment it's still tricky to make commercially. Flow batteries is another technology that is making some good progress, but it's hard to get it down to practical size for use in cars. So it will get there. Meanwhile, the efficiency of the cars is increasing, and so that's why some of the Teslas and some of the BMWs are getting up to 350 or 400 miles if you drive conservatively. That's the one big thing.
Does Tesla use the lithium ion?
They still lithium ion, all the lithium ion. Is to get the one thing that they don't tell you when you're buying the car, to get the stated range on an electric car, you need to drive at no more than 60 miles an hour.
There's always conditions. There's always terms and conditions. Yeah.
Which is
no AC, no radio on. Don't turn your radio on.
Yeah, exactly. So it's when that jump happens commercially, then it will make things a lot easier.
So talk about how you guys are thinking about this kind of, I love this concept of the neighborhood, sharing of the market, but then this other world of highway accessibility or long range accessibility. Do they play together? Is there a Kerbo Charge model where you roll out neighborhoods and maybe someone pulls into a neighborhood instead of a charging station?
I don't think so, because this is all sort of slightly geeky, techie chat, but most homes in the UK, they'll only go to 7 kilowatts. Which is pretty slow. So that's sort of a 6 to 8 hour charging time.
Got it.
And so it really suits you at home and the car's charging overnight. But if you are on the move, and if you're on the move, traveling some distances, you want to use the high speed chargers. So I think that's but at the moment you've got this network of chargers in the UK and probably in the US, where you've got these sort of slowish chargers like 50 kilowatts, 12.5 kilowatts that are not really any use to anybody unless you're going to be there for several hours. So the future is, I think, home charging, batteries at 500-mile range, and then a network of expensive to use but very high speed chargers, the 350 kilowatt plus. Because essentially, all you need as a driver is to be able to fully charge in under 10 minutes. Yeah, that's generally going to be fine, right? I mean, it takes 3 or 4 minutes to fill up with petrol or gas, I should say.
Right.
So and we're almost there.
Right.
I think that's the future. And then you can just dispense with lots of petrol stations that you don't need, because they don't need that many chargers, because there's something like 5,000-6,000 of them in the UK, and you can dispense with a lot of these medium lowish speed neighborhood chargers.
Yeah,
and turn it into parks.
There you go. Yeah. I like it. So we didn't really think about this ahead of time, but you're making me think of kind of what Tesla's building, at least here in the United States, feels like a little bit more of a walled garden, right? Where their chargers work with their vehicles. Obviously, Kerbo Charge is working with every vehicle. Do you work with Teslas? Is the plan to have it work with all vehicles? Yeah. So there's a standard charging cable called the Type 2 cable that's pretty much universal now with all EVs. So that's what we enable. The Tesla chargers, I believe they are actually compatible with most EVs. It's just that they have them turned off and only have them available for Tesla owners. But they are changing that, or at least they're experimenting with it. So in the Netherlands, they've made them available for general use as an experiment. And I'm amazed they've not done that, because it's just such a big revenue stream. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's always been like the deal for Tesla owners that you get access to part of the package and the exclusivity of it. But as long as the availability is okay, then I think that's where they'll go.
Yeah. I also have been thinking about, as you talk about this, like charging while you're parking with the battery size at the right place, it makes me think about fleets. Right. Like big commercial vehicles. I know we're probably, some of them, buses here in the United States are starting to go electric, but not a lot of other work vehicles. But you could imagine fleets being parked overnight on a huge lot. Have you guys explored this at all? Is there any extensions and thoughts of the bigger, broader commercial market? Yeah,
sure. Let's start with buses, first of all, because the opportunity there is wireless charging.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if you think a bus is out driving, could be 8 hours, 10 hours a day. If you're talking about city buses, and the batteries will be huge, so you're not going to have enough time to stop and plug in for an hour or two during the day. So if you can build in a network of wireless chargers on the roads in cities, at junctions, at places where there'll often be, or bus stops, then you can just charge them continuously on the go. And there's some interesting technology that's coming in which allows for mobile charging. So because the problem with current existing wireless chargers is that you have to perfectly align the vehicle over the pad. If you're a few millimeters out, it doesn't charge properly. But with this new technology, you can be charging on the move. So that's exciting for that. They're obviously really expensive, but once you can see the economics working when given how much cheaper it will be to charge to power a bus by batteries rather than petrol or diesel.
Yeah.
Now, fleets is interesting, and I think possibly the opportunity there is a modular battery system. So if you've got a depot, then and you might have seen these. There's a video I can share where they've got a car. It comes in, and then a robot just takes out the battery and puts a new one in from a power bank. And that, if you've got a lot of them, then that's actually pretty practical, because otherwise you have a lot of chargers for, if you've got a fleet of 100 vehicles, you've got to, the chargers are expensive. You've got to plug them all
so
in.
charge your batteries.
It changes the battery out, and then it puts into charger. Got it. Yeah,
they're commercially available. I think I've seen it in a Chinese city for scooters, because everyone drives scooters out there in Shanghai and the cities, and you can pull up to have your scooter battery swapped out. But I think for fleets, that makes sense. It doesn't really make sense for domestic vehicles, because it's really expensive to have that capability added to your car. So I think that's quite exciting.
That's super interesting. So we've obviously talked a lot about the charging element. I don't want to leave this subject without talking about the duct that you guys built, just because I'm an ops guy. I love thinking about, the logistics of that. So, I want to put a Kerbo Charge in, but now I've got to cut this groove in my sidewalk or, out front. And how are you guys organizing that? Do I do it? Do you guys come out and do it? Obviously there's probably got to be a permit or a permission there. So
we're definitely going down the Kalanick.
Kalanick. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So what we do, we post you a diamond tip drill in the mail with a little guide on how to cut the channel, and then you just cut the channel. And if there's any issues with the local authority, we that's kind of up to you to deal with. No, it's just joking. I don't know if that was funny or not.
I was like, I have so many questions. Right?
We were about to go. That was so good.
You'd prefer it if that was the answer, wouldn't you? Because
let's go for it.
The IKEA way. Yeah.
I'm gonna start cutting grooves in my sidewalk.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Make sure you use eye protection.
Yeah, exactly.
No. So we have to get the local authority on board first, and that is the challenge. They first of all, it's very fragmented. So in England, there's like 233 local authorities, tiny geographic areas. In London, there's 32 separate local authorities, and you've got to get every single one of them on board to have national coverage. So, but the good thing is that creates quite a defensive moat.
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone else got to do that as well. So you get them on board, and then we work with the contractor. Each local authority will have an approved preferred highways contractor to doing all their works. So we just work with those. And the channel is cut using a diamond tip rotary chaser floor saw. And you cut the side channel, and then you chisel up the pavement. It's actually fairly straightforward. The slightly challenging part is the curbstone, especially if that's made of granite, because you don't want to crack the whole thing. So we're just working on a few different ways of tackling that. But and of course, you never know what you need to do a site survey, because there could be utilities, and underneath the top layer of asphalt on the pavement, it could be quite deep, or it could be very shallow of crumbly stuff underneath. So anyway, you've got to work all that out. But it's at scale, it's quick. You're going to prepare this channel in an hour and a half, and then our product goes in, and it's glued into place. So it works well. And the offer to homeowners is that you break even within 1 year in your investment, and then you're just on pure upside after that. But of course, you get the convenience as well instantly, which is a more intangible value. So
interesting.
Yeah,
so you are selling. Yeah, it does. A couple things, but first that comment. So you are selling on an ROI. I always imagine, to your point a second ago, I mean, that's sometimes a challenging, if they're looking for the ROI, right, they're gonna start pinching pennies. But if you're selling on that convenience, it's an interesting sales pitch. I
Yeah.
struggle with that here in the States. We do that with solar all the time, right? Like, well, when am I gonna get an ROI? Well, I buy a car without an ROI every couple of years. Why do I worry about my solar panels? If I believe in this and I want to do this and I like the convenience, why wouldn't I just do this?
So you're right,
it's
actually,
interesting.
and we're at an early stage, so I wouldn't say that we've cracked exactly what their marketing message is going to be. I think we'll experiment with both. Yeah, you're right. It might be. There's also some people think a year is a really long time and get it quicker. So I think yeah, it's we need to push on both, and yeah, just that feeling. Tell you what it is that's nice about it. It's a feeling of self-sufficiency.
Absolutely,
which we all want to have in our lives across everything.
Well, like you said on your Instagram,
your own vegetables,
exactly. Well, like you had on your Instagram, people are already DIYing these solutions, right? Yeah. And it's that self-sufficiency, that self-sufficient attitude of going out, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
So what are you projecting out right now? I know it's not all in full production just yet, but what are you projecting? I go on the side, I talk to a rep, whatever, and I say, I want this. From the day that I, sign the contract to the day that I have Kerbo Charge built into my sidewalk, what do you think in there?
It's dependent on getting the local authority where you live on board.
Sure.
So if we have that local authority on board, then we can go from you place an order to installation within a couple of months. Because it's a pretty easy process.
If I'm the first guy in a borough, I'm the first guy. Might be a little longer because I got
exactly. And we understand that like local authorities are dealing with a lot. They've got a lot of other priorities. Sure. The reality is many of them see public charge points as the solution because they're quite clean and they sort of superficially seem to make sense in that we'll put these out. I think they have contracts with vendors that might give them a little bit of income from the charge points. But actually, as we discussed, it doesn't really work for consumers.
Yeah.
Well, they're expensive too. Yeah. Right. Like here in the US, it's maybe no more than $10 to fill to pay for your car to full charge. Hearing that it's over 20 pounds per car, it seems like there's either price per kilowatt hour is really high there, and the sources of energy are just expensive, or someone's making a bigger profit than someone is here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll have to check that out. You reckon it's say $10 for a full charge?
Definitely. Yeah. Like it varies. That so I have an EV. I have a Chevy Volt, and it's a small amount of range. But whenever I would drive when I worked at Microsoft, they would have like a subsidized pricing there, and it was maybe $4. So it was about $1 an hour. But then when I go to a mall, I went to a mall 2 weeks ago, and I plugged into the same charge point, and it was $2 an hour. So they usually just tell you the dollars per hour on the screen.
$5 per hour.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Per kilowatt hour. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my friend who has a home charger, he said, "Hey, it's about a quarter of that price at the lowest." So he's like, it's about 20 cents an hour if it was a level 2 charger, 25 cents an hour.
No, that's interesting. I mean, you guys are more energy independent over there, so I know your gas prices are lower than here. So, but I'd be interested to know if that's being subsidized or whether that's sustainable.
I think that's a really good point. I think a lot of these, obviously, even our charging companies are trying to figure it out right now and and so who knows what they're doing to get there. But you did mention something else. One of the things I think, another thing to hit harder that stands out to me is what you were talking about when people going to these public charging stations. It's also just our habit, right? Because we have petrol stations, right? Like
that's a good point.
That's what we do. That's how you fill up, right? You don't have petrol at home. You don't sit in your driveway and get petrol. So that is, I think that alone, to your earlier point around convenience, self-sustainability, all of these things, like that's a huge marketing message that petrol just can't touch, right? Gas engines can't touch. And maybe it's just breaking that habit, right? Of just like, I've got to go to the gas station right now.
Yeah. No, it's quite nice going to the gas station. It's quite therapeutic, just standing there and you go and buy some things from the shop. But no, I think they'll all be turned into hedgehog sanctuaries.
Yeah.
The gas stations.
I love it. That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before.
Because we've got a problem with hedgehogs.
Wow!
In the UK,
yeah, they're in decline. So I think that could be what we should do with them. Yeah.
Every endangered species, is in the
you can have
right.
You have different
I love it.
Different sanctuaries. I like that. So this has been awesome. I have to ask. Obviously we know you, Michael, because of last time and Pinga, and one of the things that you've done over the last year that we were also talking about earlier before the show was how you've been talking about your experience of what you learned at Pinga. And, one of the reasons we wanted to put this out there was obviously to call attention to the problem of climate and sustainability and all the many efforts that are out there going on to combat that or help that or support that. But we're also talking to companies that are trying to make money, trying to build startups. We're going after the for-profit companies. And, you're doing something pretty unique here where, you're building an app. You're building a physical product, and then you've got this like local municipality exercise of working with the authorities and putting a groove in sidewalks and that kind of a thing. Hey, maybe that's a slogan there. You could be like, put a groove in your sidewalk.
Put a groove in your sidewalk.
Get your
I'm
groove on.
writing that down.
Dude, you need to hire Ty. He's already like two
available, Ty.
All right, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, you're obviously really good at analyzing what you're learning and learning from your experiences. Just in this time that you've done it this year, what could you offer to someone thinking about going into this space?
In some ways, it's no different to any other startup in that the first thing is to work on something that solves a personal problem, because then you get the passion, and if it's solving a problem for you, it will be for others. Then I think beyond that, if you then are able to develop a business that is solving a problem for people and has a clear environmental benefit, then you just have a really attractive business for consumers. And I think a nice example is there's a lot of these circular economy startups that are doing well. There's one here that you can choose from a wide ranges of. They describe it as slightly boring domestic products, but things like surface spray and detergent and other things. And you get these big plastic cartons that come, but they take your previous plastic one away, so that it is a completely zero waste. And that's an example where it's genuinely useful. It's quite affordable, and you're doing good. And those are doing well. So that's what you need to do.
And so I guess going into building on top of that, is there an investor market here, at least in the sustainable transportation industry?
For sure. I mean, I think it's a hot space for investors across the entire sector, and certainly in transport. If with Pinga, we didn't experience much proactive outreach from investors coming to us and until the very end, because it was a mature space ultimately that we moved into. But with this, I actually have on LinkedIn, even though we're really early stage. So I think it is attractive, and there's a lot of grants as well, government grants available.
Nice
space, yeah.
That's similar to here in the US. If you guys have talked to investors, what is the investor landscape right now? If you can explain a little bit more.
So we at this stage, we're only talking to angel investors, and there are a lot of, because we're too early for VCs. Although if you're listening, you can find us. But there are a lot of syndicates completely focused on green investing.
Yeah.
So that means that you as a founder can find those groups relatively easily, and you just got this nice alignment. So I think that's one of the things that's attractive about it.
Okay, very cool. Are there any gaps that VCs don't have enough knowledge in, but they should be funding, that you've seen in green jobs, green tech, green climate?
Yeah, maritime tech is one I was chatting about to some drinks on Tuesday, and there seems to be a lot of appetite to invest in that space and for technology to be built, but it's a bit of a, perhaps not particularly sexy.
Right, but still.
But if you think about the entire, how nothing's really changed in that space. Like the tankers traveling around the world are running on the same technologies 150 years ago. Just big old maritime diesel engines, and the ports. I don't know if they've evolved too much. So I think in terms of cleaning up that space. And moving to why have we not seen any hydrogen tankers yet? I don't know, maybe they're a bit too explosive. Yeah, so I think I read it's like 3% of global emissions, so it's a fair old chunk.
That's pretty big. Yeah.
Is there an EV play in maritime right now? Are they starting to go electric?
Not that I've seen for the big shipping. I mean, certainly in ports, there's no excuse not to electrify the entire port and all everything there, and significantly reduce costs. And I think that and a modular battery system would work well there. For tankers that are traveling thousands of miles, I don't. Maybe with flow batteries, which have significantly increased capacity, or maybe you go for a hybrid model where you probably find with tankers that they're inefficient at like low speed maneuvering and accelerating. So that's where you have batteries, and then you move to hydrogen for longer the regular running across the seas. So yeah, an area, I think that's an untapped area.
Okay, I could see that. Speaking, you mentioned hydrogen. What's your perspective on hydrogen? I feel like it's been in development for so long.
Yeah. Right, it's been around a very long time. It's the issues with it are, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but in London there's quite a few hydrogen buses cruising around. So they are making some progress, but the issue is the cost of manufacturing the hydrogen, storage of the hydrogen, and one of the issues that I've learned about is that hydrogen molecules are very small, tiny, and so they leak very easily, and hydrogen is actually a greenhouse gas.
Right. Interesting.
So if you get this at scale globally, and you start getting significant leaks, you're going to cause a lot more harm than gain.
So quality, safety, security. That's
you can have a bit of a time bomb. So that's something to consider. And then of course it's just the miniaturization of the technology and making it economical in cars, which that's still a way off. It's just really difficult. And so that's why I haven't got any commercial hydrogen cars yet. So I'm not sure about hydrogen, to be honest. Yeah. I think in some ways it feels a bit dated already, because you've got to carry around this sort of volatile, leaky fuel source,
like a nuclear power plant in your car a little bit.
Right. And while there's a battery, batteries just dry, sealed. I mean, they do catch fire, so they're not without risk, batteries, but it feels a bit.
Just to jump back to the funding market and talking to these angels and maybe even some of these VCs, which I'm sure you have some experience with. I hear you that this is a hot space and they're jumping in, but obviously a lot of times the value in an investor is what they can bring to the table. Do you feel like is this just a hot topic right now, or is there starting to be some experience at the institutional investing world right now? Are you getting angels who can provide value, or are they just writing checks?
I mean, we're at pre-seed stage, and we're doing a crowdfund first. So I'll just be honest, I haven't heavily engaged angels yet.
Yeah, that's okay.
And so I can't talk confidently to it. I think there will be angels that have been involved in the energy sector, right? So that we've had angels at Pinger that or X that were quite a few wealthy men and women who have come out of the big oil companies.
Okay. Yep.
There. And clearly they've been at the forefront of innovation for some time. So I think that is where you could get some angels with some nice experience. But I think if I'm lucky enough to be invited on again, then in 6 months' time, I can probably speak a bit more confidently to that question.
Fair.
So
right now the plan is crowdsourcing. That's your next step on the financial strategy.
We're on an incubator program, so we're doing a crowdsource through that platform and another just to get us started. And then really, we need to get more products in the ground and show that the gross margin is strong, and then we'll be straight out to institutional investors
this fall,
probably spring, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you talk about the incubator? Which incubator are you part of?
So we're on a couple actually. So we're on one called the Gate One Incubator. That's a management consultancy firm that I work at and have worked at, and it's that with that one. Some brilliant support to get you moving, and then you pitch the whole firm, of which there's 150, 200 of them, to give them the opportunity to invest.
Cool.
Yeah, which is nice. And then we're also on the Milton Keynes Accelerator Program, and Milton Keynes is one of our new towns, or a city now in the UK, and it's basically been modelled on American cities.
Oh wow!
So,
like
walkable.
Okay.
Grid structure, wide streets, slightly decentralized, and it's so anyway. It's a great city, and the program partners you with different industry partners. One of which is Milton Keynes Council, and so that we're working with them to install some proof of concepts in the city, and that culminates in a demo day pitch to investors as well. At the end of the year, so that's going to be another fundraise opportunity.
And that sounds like an opportunity because it's a newer town, and you're in with this accelerator that you can actually potentially work with local authorities there in a much more streamlined way. Get to practice that, and probably get some grooves and sidewalks, right? Like you're going to get some done.
Grooves and sidewalks. Yeah, absolutely. No, I was up there yesterday to meet the.
Nice.
The highways contractor there called Runway, and that they've been great. So yes, they're a really innovative city. They've been experimenting with wireless charging for car share clubs. Wireless bus charging. So yeah, it's I've been really impressed with them.
Getting your groove on.
Groove in your sidewalk.
Can you groove in? They seem like the right city because if they have that kind of progressive, innovative value, then they're going to be pre-qualified to.
They've got it's the only city in the UK that's got the robot deliveries of supermarket.
Wow!
Groceries.
Yeah.
I think you've got them in quite a few places over there. Starship technology.
Starships. Yeah, I got a couple partnerships with DoorDash and a few of those for sure. There's some really interesting Instagram accounts out there with people liking to attack these little robots. So.
Really?
Oh yeah. They paint them. They put things on them. Yeah, they knock them over. They do all kinds of.
Oh, it's like
It's a
short
tough
circuit.
Exactly.
Bullies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love short circuit. Yeah.
You were too young for that, Jacob. I think.
I was just in the city where it was filmed, which is called Astoria in Oregon. Yeah, they have a short circuit museum. Michael, when you come visit. When we do a whole podcast conference thing,
count me in.
We'll go there. We'll go there.
I'm scheming to move out to the US. It's in my strategic plan. But it'd be quite fun to sort of take one of those robots, like in short circuit, and like reprogram it.
Yeah,
to become like your own
charge
robot.
Cars.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or just sort of general. Just get it.
Just be your butler.
Own personal robot to go to the supermarket for you. Yeah, and do things. Yeah. So.
All right, Michael. Wrapping up here, we got something called Rapid Mayhem Questions. You probably remember this from last time. We're gonna do something a little different though. We're gonna play a little true or false. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Let me know if you're ready. It's going to be all around the sustainable transportation industry.
Excellent.
All right.
I'm ready.
First, about 60% of consumers avoid EVs because they worry about running out of a charge. But only actually a quarter of drivers actually have gone to zero. True or false?
So I'm going to say false. I think the first one's right, but I can't believe that 25% of people have run out of charge because it's quite hard to do. But if you tell me that's true, I'll be amazed.
Okay, it's true. It is true.
25% have run out of charge.
I was a little surprised myself. Yeah.
All right, next one. In the UK,
but I will say real quick before we go on, it's still a mismatch of expectation, right? We still have overhyped range anxiety and all of these things. To your point, there's a lot of protections and things that the car manufacturers, the battery makers, all of them can do to fix that. But it's interesting.
Like a level 1 charger, right? You could just go plug in for 24 hours.
Right.
Next one. In the UK, there are more EV chargers than petrol stations.
I'm going to say true.
Correct. All right. Number 3. A new electric car is registered every 30 minutes in the UK.
30 minutes. Oh, that seems like too high frequency. I'm going to say false.
You're right, but it's actually an even higher frequency. It's every 9 minutes, and this is
including
2019
hybrids. Is that including plug-in hybrids?
It's probably including hybrids.
Well, that's great to hear, actually.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of hybrids, so that's number 4. Hybrid cars produce 90% fewer pollutants than a non-hybrid one. True or false?
I'm going to say false because hybrids, most people just run them on petrol most of the time, I reckon.
I think this is in regards to the actual production of the car, and it's actually true.
Oh, in the production.
I'll include the link.
I think it's maybe all in production, operating. Yeah.
That's great to hear.
It is. It surprised me. Nice. It was a higher number than I thought.
There was this statistic that initially electric cars are worse environment to manufacture, right?
That's
the mining for the batteries.
Hot debate. Yeah.
Yeah. So it takes sort of it's like 19 months to break. If you bought an electric car versus a petrol car, 19 months to break even on the CO2 on electric, and because of the extra energy to make it. But of course, you're immediately avoiding the local emissions, and which cause childhood asthma and brain issues. So I think electric wins.
I think this last question might even move it more in that direction. So true or false? Pure electric cars don't need oil changes, transmission, or coolants, but they do need brake fluid replacements. Pure electric cars only.
I thought they did need coolant, but I'm sure they need brake fluid. So I'm going to say true.
It's false. They don't need any of these things.
They don't need coolant. I'm not sure. I think you have to check your research on that, Jacob.
All right.
I've seen it under the bonnet. I'll see.
Tyson, something similar.
Well,
all right.
And I was surprised about the brake fluid, but I realized I was thinking about hybrids here in the U.S. The Toyota Prius is everywhere, especially in Seattle. And I mean they have these regenerative brakes, but there is still I thought a brake fluid in there to keep that brake going.
Yeah, because that's one of the problems with them is that they're so heavy because the batteries make them much heavier than conventional cars. And I read this quite depressing thing that hybrid cars like Priuses are actually causing are actually accelerating climate change because they have to brake so much because they're heavy. The black dust that gets emitted.
Brake dust is horrible.
Right.
Yeah.
It's ending up on the North Pole, which is reducing the reflective ability, making it slightly blacker, which is reducing the reflective ability of the North Pole to reflect sun back out to space. And so it's accelerating climate change, which is pretty depressing. I don't want to end on a low note, but yeah.
We'll bring them back.
I mean, you're making the argument. We got to make the argument. We got to have them all out there, and even the hybrids are not there yet, right? So I like it.
So, Michael, climate change is big. It's real big. I mean, Ty mentioned there's so many different industries, and there's a lot of different places where people are trying to help. So, where do you think is the best place people can spend their time and money to help out or to start helping out?
Well, I think one of the things that's satisfying about this space as an individual is just looking at your day-to-day life and think about the little interventions you can make. And then if everybody globally makes those little interventions, then you make a big difference. So if you just map out, you almost write it down as a diary and then look at it and go, oh, actually, I could just make a small change there, small change there. So whether that's just reduce the number of car journeys slightly each week, so you can walk or cycle, whether that's trying a circular economy startup for getting your deliveries of some of your products and therefore reducing the amount of plastic waste, whether that's just you can insulate your home very cheaply for a couple of £100 to reduce your CO2 emission there. And as we said before, every time you do that, you get that feeling of self-sufficiency and independence that's quite satisfying. So I think that's the best way. That's what we've been trying to do.
Yeah. I read a great book recently. It was called Being the Change, and it was about someone who became carbon neutral, and then he somehow became even carbon negative somehow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so he his whole family, they rode bicycle, or they started riding bicycles, growing their own food, composting, rotating their composting, and they even had an outdoor toilet sort of a thing. And it was really there was so many things that he did and listed off that there really are so many things we can do from home. There's some statistic I read that 60% of individual emissions are just from their generated from their house. I think that also includes they might be their car as well, but yeah, I'm with you. There's definitely a lot of incremental things we can each do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not, you read something and say, right, everyone must stop eating all beef and never fly again. And that's just going to put people off. Reduce your beef consumption by 50%, fine. But still enjoy a steak every now and then. I hope maybe you guys are vegans, I don't know. But that's those are the steps to make.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna wrap it up. Well, and they're also buying your product. That's what's the next thing people.
I was going to say, yeah. I mean, that's the most important thing that you can do. No, please follow us. Follow us on Instagram at Kerbo Charge, where we're just posting innovative and amusing ways that people are charging their car.
Love it.
And then sign up to our mailing list, because we'll let you know when we're available in your area, and then we can get your product out when you're ready.
Wonderful.
And there was something else you mentioned earlier that I want to make sure we call out, which is the crowdfunding.
Yeah.
How can people stay tuned or get involved with your crowdfunding efforts if they're interested?
Yes. So again, we're actually about to put it's going to be up in the next, good timing, this week, the next 24 hours.
Yes.
A sign-up page on our website. So
well, say the date, because this might come out a little bit after.
No.
So say the date.
Right. So. So that's going to be up, available to pre-register on the 26th of August, 2022.
Fair.
So
and then it'll be live at the end in September. 2022?
It'll be sometime in the autumn, actually. But if you sign up for interest on the website, then we'll let you know as soon as it's ready.
Great.
We'll include the link in the show notes. Which platform is it going to be on? Which crowdfunding platform, in case someone Googles it?
We probably going to be Seedrs, but we're just finalizing that at the moment.
Seedrs?
So, yeah, Seedrs.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
It's good to know. And then Michael, you did mention you offering a discount code to listeners of the show. It's dailymarketer-2022, and they would get 20% off.
That's right.
The Kerbo Charge package. So Daily Marketer dash 2022. And yeah, thank you so much for that, Michael. And thanks so much for the chat. This was I learned a ton from you.
I really enjoyed it. So
it's always fun having you on, Michael, and we really appreciate it. And we're excited about what you're doing. We'll definitely make sure everybody stays tuned and watches what you guys are doing. I love the Instagram and the DIY of the problems that you're solving. But for the people, you've already found your audience of the people who are the self-sufficient folks. I like it. So
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you, gents. It was a pleasure, and thanks for the tagline that we'll get on the website soon. Put
I love
groove
it.
in your sidewalk.
I love it. I love it.
Get your groove on.
Right.
All right. Bye,
Get
Michael.
your groove on. All right. Bye, Michael.
See you, man. Bye-bye.
Boom. How was that? Well, there's more. So keep listening. We speak with climate tech leaders and change makers in EV, reforestation, solar energy, flood mapping, and a whole lot more. Also, you can give feedback or check out show notes at our website, climatemayhem.com. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Oh, don't forget, if you found this valuable or interesting at all, please hit subscribe. That way we know you're loving it. So just go to Spotify or whatever podcast app you're on, hit that subscribe button at the top. Production was done by Daniel Steenkamp with cover art by Harrison Glenn. This is Jacob Kubica with my legendary colleague, Ty Wolf motherfucking Jones. Peace out, Climate Mayhem. Out.